This is my AC30. Oh wait, you can't see it. Hold on. Well, now you can't see my face. 2 seconds. This is my AC30. Oh gosh! And this is the amp I want to be buried with. Before I start talking about the AC30, I'm not going to be talking about the normal channel with a range master, which is a good sound. I'm not going to be talking about the vibe trim channel, which is also a good sound. I want to be talking about the reason why I love the AC30, and that's because of the top boost channel on the AC30 TBS. Standing in the bank line the other day, and I had a thought, well, what if I just died? Like, we all have that thought. And I thought if I had to tell the bank teller, bury me with my AC30, which, you know what I was talking about? Well, my family know what I was talking about. So I FaceTimed my brother, and I pointed out to him which of these amps was the one I wanted to be buried with. Alright, so I was at the bank the other day, and I thought, what if I just died right now? Like I had a heart attack, and I had to tell the bank lady, I want to be buried with my AC30. And I told her that. And how would you know what I was mean? So I'm telling you so that you know I want to be buried with the AC30. Right, this is the AC30. This one here. Okay? This is the AC30. It says VOX. It's got black with the candy panel. Okay, it's not the deluxe reverb, not the brown VOX, not the little tiny black VOX, not the Vibrochamp. It's this one, alright? So which one is it?
The deluxe reverb?
No! Imagine if they buried me with the Vibrochamp, or worse, like the Cambridge 50. Which are good amps, but not the one I want to be buried with. This is really heavy. Oh, this is a stupid joke. So I know what you're thinking, Will, you're being extra. No, I'm serious. I want to be buried with this amp I'm holding right now. And I know I'm not the only one that has this kind of emotional reaction, this emotional resonance with this amplifier.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello. That sounds absolutely interstellar, old, new, contemporary, vintage magic. Everything.
Yeah.
You've even got a little tear in your eye.
I do. It's still.
This amp represents us, and it represents who we are as musicians, who we are as guitarists, who we are as people. It's a sound that we identify with. It's a sound that gives us what we want to be hearing. When we play a note, it makes the sound that we want to hear. So what about this amp is special? What about this amp is magic? What about this amp is what makes so many of us similar guitarists have such a strong connection with this amplifier? What makes this different than, say, a deluxe reverb reissue, which I also have? Well, as you can see, this component is very different from this component. Ah! If we take a look at the AC30 circuit, ignoring the vibe trim channel, we'll see that it's actually an incredibly simple circuit. If you were to just teach someone just the basics about circuit design, they could follow a signal path in a few minutes. Yeah, the tone stack is different, the in and out EQ sound of the amp is different, but I think one of the biggest differences between the VOX sound and the Fender sound is negative feedback. If we look at a schematic for a deluxe reverb, you'll see that from the output of the amp, a little bit of the signal actually gets put in at the input. But that output is actually out of phase from the input, so the sound cancels itself out just a little bit, leading to that crystal clear, hi-fi sound that Fenders are known for. Just for the record, I'm still holding this even though I'm not on camera. The AC30, on the other hand, doesn't have such negative feedback, so the amp can easier spiral out of control, especially when you hit it with a lot of gain or distortion. but the touch sensitivity, the detail, how the amp reacts is unrivaled. So the controls for an AC30, they're kind of unique and quirky. They're not like wired backwards or anything, it's just that the control panel is backwards compared to a Fender amp where the control panel is on the front. So for example, on this particular AC30, there's this kind of buzz at idle unless you turn the normal channel up about halfway. Volume is pretty self-explanatory. As you turn it up, it gets louder. When you're plugging into the low sensitivity input, right before 12 o'clock, the amp starts to break up. The cut control is the most powerful but most misunderstood control of an AC30. You turn it up to get more cut. How I prefer to dial in my AC30s is I turn my volume up to the volume I need, I turn the cut all the way to the right, and then just slowly start tapping it back until the amp opens up. The bass and treble controls, they work like bass and treble controls, but they're passive bass and treble controls. So if you turn up the bass knob, you don't get more bass, you just get less of everything else. Or if you turn the treble knob up, you don't get more treble, you get less of everything else. But since these controls are really interactive, you get to do some really interesting things. For example, if you pull the treble back and give the bass just a little bit of a boost, you get this kind of mid-range punch, which is great for thickening up a Telecaster. So why don't I use this thing normally? Because this thing really never leaves the house. Why don't I use it normally? Well, for one, it's ridiculously loud. It doesn't have a master volume, and even then, this amp sounds its best when it's pushing air. And in fact, that's a huge part of the AC30 sound, is just the air moving and hitting the guitar strings and kind of energizing your whole system. Second thing is it's really heavy. I can't even carry this thing in one hand. I have to carry it with two hands, otherwise I'll risk pulling my wrist out of socket like I feel like I'm doing right now. So we say all this, what's the conclusion? There is none, I just really like this amp. This is why VOX is superior to Fender. See, to get the chassis out for the Fender, the Deluxe Reverb, I had to take out these screws which attach to the back panel, and then I had to take out these screws which attach the chassis to the cabinet, and then I had to unplug the RCA, and then I had to unplug the speaker, then I had to undo these huge threaded screws from the top to get the chassis out. With the AC30, you take the back panel off and you're there.